So thanks for coming back to our series called UTD Under the Hood. My name is Andrew Georgitsis, co-founder of UTD and currently the CEO. And I tell you, it's pretty amazing because so far in this series, we've kind of gone through a little bit of the background, of course, of myself. You got to know me, a little bit of background about Jeff. Of course, the background of UTD. What are our roots? You know, where did we come from? It's almost 10 years. Can you believe it? A little bit about our mission and purpose and, you know, what our real focus is. We've talked about our ethos and our philosophy. You know, we've obviously talked about our 10 covenants, our teaching philosophy, our equipment philosophy. We've even looked at what do we look for in a diver? What kind of divers do we want to attract as UTD? Meaning, you know, the core, which is you, the diver, but also your philosophy of this end goal, you know, this end goal in mind. Of course, a great thing we've also done is we've gone through some of the training paths and looked at how do you join UTD, where do you fit in. And of course, a lot about our instructional materials and our books and online approach and even our instructional approach. In the last video we're talking about just our commitment to you and your commitment to us, and that's what really makes us different. Now, today I want to talk a little bit about gas management, and it's sort of one of those topics that I'm not going to teach you and lecture you how to calculate gas management. You know, really, that's what instruction is for. I just want to talk about our approach, you know. And I like to start this out by saying, when I see pressure gauges like this, it just speaks to how this whole industry is always looking for a band-aid, looking for a crutch, looking for, instead of proper instruction, and instead of giving you the proper tools in which to do this for life, to do this sport and really have a great time doing it for the rest of your life, they come up with some band-aid, some selling nonsense point to sort of, I don't know what the word is. It's like to uneducate you, you know, to make you dumb and numb. And it feels like they do that to somehow, and I don't really know why. I mean, look at this gauge. They've got it like color-coded, like that means anything. Look, you got a blue zone, then you got a green zone. What does a green zone mean? I don't know. Is that the diving zone? You got a red zone. And the red zone is supposed to be, okay, now you're in the critical area, right? And it actually gets worse than this gauge. I mean, you even got this little area right here where it's like really critical, like critical area. You know, you could have 150 bar, or in, you know, however you want to think of it, called 2,000 psi, and still be in critical danger in certain situations. And that's the point. Is gas management isn't a simple 500 psi and be on the boat. It isn't a simple 35 bar and be on the boat. It's so much more. And if you watched our previous videos, you will see that one of our covenants is related to gas management because it's that important. It is that we have enough gas for 2 divers to deal with an emergency, such as an air share, to donate and have enough gas to do a safe ascent rate or return rate to their next available gas. Whether it be a stage bottle or the surface, doesn't matter, or a deco bottle, whatever you want to call it, to the next available gas while doing the emergency and while breathing at a higher rate and while, most importantly, conducting all required safety stops or decompression stops. So you notice that being on the boat with 500 doesn't do anything, or this red area doesn't do anything to tell you when you should leave. What are your, you know, gas management, what we call management parameters? When do we turn the dive? How do we calculate the volume of gas? Tank, there's so many factors to it. And by removing that from your education, they are doing you a disservice. By trying to simplify it is how people run out of gas. You know, one of our philosophies in UTD is gas is so related to time that in fact your primary gas gauge is right inside your head. And you should be able to look at your bottom time and say, I have been on the bottom for 10 minutes and therefore I have used 800 psi or whatever your math is. Because you have pre-calculated that you are going to be burning about 80 psi a minute. And therefore, after 10 minutes, you've burned 800 psi. And if you were to check your SPG or your pressure gauge, mammogram or whatever, mammometer, you would notice that you are now at 2200 psi. And if you are not at 2200 psi, you would then adjust the next 5 or 10 minute increment so that you would be closer the next time you check. And by knowing your gas that intimately, the risk and chances of running out of gas are 0 because you're relating it to time and you're double checking using the SPG. And you've done all the calculations and have the knowledge how to do that prior to entering the water. So when you are doing your 100-foot dive to 30 meters and you have calculated that you need to spare 40 cubic feet or 1500 psi or 100 bar, and you start your way up at that very moment, that rock bottom gas means that sure, you may arrive at the surface with 1200 in your tank or 1000 in your tank, 70 bar or so, and you go, wow, what a waste of gas. Excepting you need to know, and you've done the math, that 100 bar, that 1500 psi was in reserve so that if you and your buddy were to have an issue and you were to air share, you would come up off the bottom, you would arrive at 15 meters or 50 feet. You would conduct your 1 minute safety stop, then 40 feet, 12 meters, then 9 meters or 30 feet, then 20 feet, 6 meters, 10 feet, 3 meters, each doing 1 minute. And then from 6 meters to the surface, 20 feet to the surface, do a 3 minute safety ascent rate. And when you arrive, you'll notice that you're basically at bare minimum. You will have calculated the rock bottom means all the way to 0. And you would go, wow, I cannot believe we use so much gas in emergency, breathing twice what we would normally breathe because there's 2 people, and at a higher breathing rate. 1.5 times or something like that, whatever your calculation is, but we like to use 1 1/3, something in that range, 1.5 times more. So if you're normally breathing 0.75 cubic feet, we calculate it on 1. So it's 2 of you going and then to the surface, and because it's decode, should actually be twice as much. So for 2 people. So you see how this exponentializes? So where you might use 400 psi to come up, you now need 1600 psi because it's 2 divers, that's 800, breathing twice as much, that's 1600. Basic math, guys. So if you're left with 1500, you arrive at 1200, you're like, wow, what a waste, excepting you need that. See what I'm saying? So this is our gas management philosophy, and it's such an important philosophy. But it actually speaks to a bigger picture. And like you will see in the next video with ratio deco, again, what it speaks to is in UTD and everything we've been talking about thus far in our educational approach is to invest in you and teach you consistently the right way from the start, from your open water class. So that way we don't give you false information like be on the surface with 500, never teach you what that means, when to leave the bottom, how much gas, air sharing, the whole thing. Just basically minimize the instructional value that you get. And then later down the road have to say, hey, you know what? Forget about what I taught you in open water class. This is the correct way to do it. We don't do that. We only teach one way, the right way, and consistently. So in the open water class, you will learn rock bottom, which is enough gas for 2 divers to air share to get out. Here's your calculation, and you will be required to do it. It teaches your brain to think. Hence, we meet our covenants of creating a thinking team. We didn't just come up with that covenant because we dreamt of it. It is such a critical part of everything. We don't want you to be dumb and just be going, well, blue I'm okay, green I think means go, and red means stop. And this other red area means really, really, really stop. It's craziness, man. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@unifiedteamdiving. And as always, safe diving.